Hey everybody, and welcome to Adventures with Peps. We are back looking at the ABC Warrior rulebook. I'm fairly confident this is going to be the last video before we do an actual game. And today we are starting on page 28, and we're only doing 2 pages. It's close combat. And we'll talk about why I'm only doing these pages initially. There's probably going to be a little bit about terrain coming up, but this is the focus for the video, and it's close combat. And when we're going through stuff, I'm going to use Black Blood as the example. So close combat happens when models are within 1 inch of each other. This is classified as the close combat range. You can shoot in close combat. It's not recommended, but you can do it. You're -1 to hit, so -1 to your shoot stat. So example, Black Blood, if he was shooting at close range, he would be shooting with 3 dice. His short range actually gives him +2, which isn't bad. But if he goes one-handed, it's only +1. So he could comfortably shoot in close combat. It's not recommended though. His fight of 4 with a knife is probably going to be better for him. But you can do it. You don't have to, but you can. You can't though do an aimed fire shot. So it's purely snap shooting. But let's be honest, if you're at 1 inch range, you should be just punching. Your robots punch each other. The next few steps are very similar to the shooting phase. You pick up a number of dice equal to your fight. So for Black Blood, it's 4. Then you check for modifiers. So the only modifiers you're checking at this point are these 2. Is the model pinned? If the answer is yes, you gain a dice. If you're fighting in their back arc, you'll also gain a dice. So at most, Black Blood could swing 6 times if he meets those 2. Once you've got your dice results, if the amount of hits equals more than your opponent's cool, they gain metal fatigue and pinning, just like shooting, and then your opponent gets to attempt to dodge. So Black Blood has an evade of 2. If he'd been punched and hit, he gets to roll his 2 dice to try and dodge. If successfully rolling a 2000 AD symbol, he can then move 3 inches away. Very straightforward, very easy to follow. Where things change is on the hurting section. So Black Blood is armed with, let's see if we can get that to zoom, a knife. It's a 1 inch range, so it's close combat. +1 modified. Ooh, as I knocked my camera over. +1 modifier. If that was a gun, you normally add that stat to your shooting. But this is close combat, so it comes in when you're trying to roll for hurts instead. So the weapon modifier is +1. The attacker, if he charged, also gets another +1, and if there's metal fatigue marker on the defender, you also get +1. To work out the power of your attack, it is your fight plus your modifiers. So if we were already in combat, you do 4 + 1, so Black Blood has power 5, which is why you would fight in close combat over his gun, because his gun is power 4. You then roll the number of dice. Cover doesn't modify anything, but if you're fighting in his back, they get -1 for their resist, and you're looking for armor results. So that's exactly the same pretty much as shooting. There's a couple of little different things with the weapon modifiers, but nothing too confusing. Hopefully I explained that well enough. And then you work it out just like you would with shooting. So let's say Black Blood's hit a robot 4 times. He's caused enough damage for 2 times, and then the robot saved 1 of them, so only 1's gone through. The target would gain a leak and is injured if it was a floppy. So super simple, very similar to shooting. You also get the same sort of stats there. If a close combat attack is made against a pinned floppy, the attacker gains +1, and there is no chance for the defender with the brawler skill to counter-attack. That's over here, and we'll deal with that in a minute. In the world of ABC Warriors, multiple opponents in the close combat simply means more chances to get in each other's way, so you don't get a bonus. There's no point trying to pile in multiple robots, it's not going to really help you. A model within close combat range of an enemy is allowed to move away using a move, sprint or charge action when it activates. Any enemies with a higher move stat than the active model gets to make a close combat attack. That's a rare rule that will come into play now and again. I think if you're trying to run away, you know if you can get away or not. So that's very situational. Special rules that you have to watch out for in close combat. 2 weapon fighting. Now Black Blood has, he has a 1, he could use his gun as a 1-hand and a knife as 1-hand. That means he has 2 close combat weapons. What does that mean? Well, you still roll your 4 dice, and you have to decide if you're going pure knife or knife and his gun. If you do both, you get to roll your 4 dice, and if you roll a hit or a special, they count as hits. So you're more likely to hit, but your opponent does get +1 to their resist roll, so they're more likely to defend against it. So you gotta weigh success versus failure up as best as you can. Then there's the brawler skill, works very similar to gunfighter. If a defending model with brawler skill successfully evades, they can take a swing back. Very easy, and then it can go back and forth as well. If a model has a knockback skill, which Black Blood does not, I believe, if they score a hit and you get a special on any of your combat dice, the hit is not evaded, you can knock the target backwards d6 inches. That's important if you're fighting on top of a building. It's a great little result. You could push them off a building, you could push them off a cliff, anything like that. So that's close combat. It's not super difficult. It's going to come up in the game for definite, but it's very similar to shooting. It's just your modifiers, instead of affecting hitting, they instead affect the hurting section. And that's it for close combat. Then we get mounted models and vehicles. I'm not dealing with that today. I don't have any models for this game currently. We have a quick look at some weaponry for the bigger vehicles. But once again, we're not going to go over this, but there are so many rules for vehicles. So that will have to be its own section once they start producing them. Then we get to terrain, so we've jumped to page 37 now. Open terrain can be ignored whilst moving. Difficult terrain reduces your move by 50%, and blocking terrain, you obviously can't go through it. Always discuss terrain before you start a game with your opponent. So in this example, even though it's a hill, it's open terrain, so no movement penalty. In this one, they're traversing through a factory of ruins, so that's difficult terrain. Let's say the model's got a 6-inch move, 2 inches to the terrain, leaves them with 4 inches in the terrain. But because it's difficult, that becomes 2 inches, so they can only go 2 inches in. And then to move out, you've got to half it until you're out of the terrain. And in the final picture, Mechquake's looking at Mongrel, and there's a big blocking column that he cannot move through, so he's going to have to walk around it. Gives the examples, it's very straightforward. Then you have the section 4, resist. So if terrain gets blasted by a weapon or rammed by a vehicle, they've given you some quick rules. It is rarely going to come up in game personally, unless you're like, well, let's say this robot's hiding behind a massive rock. I want that rock gone. I'm going to try and blow up the rock instead. You could do that. Obviously, it's a fun storytelling element that you can blow up terrain, but do it sensibly. If it's going to ruin the game for everyone, don't do it. Leaping and climbing. A model can use the leap climbing double action to effectively move up or down a terrain piece. You can do it in any direction, upwards, downwards, left, right, and it just uses up your move. You need to finish on a flat surface though. Falling, if there's any elevation at all, you can fall. So when a model gains metal fatigue, a pinned, injury, a leak or stun marker when within 1 inch of a ledge or a drop, they have to pass a cool test. If it fails, they are going to fall. So in the example they're given down here, we'll do it a little bit different. We'll use Black Blood again. So he has a cool of 4, he's been shot, he's 1 inch within of an edge. You roll your 4 dice, you're looking for armors and specials. But if he was to roll 4 hits, he's going to fall. You gain a 2 power hit for each 2 inches fallen, rounding up. So it is dangerous, it only really affects snipers. Look at that, that's a beautiful picture. And that is it. We are now into Armory. So I guess the next video is going to have to be me playing a game, and we'll have a little battle report. As always, I hope this video has been helpful, and with the other 3, we've pretty much got the basics down. Let me know if there's something you want me to cover. I will be doing a battle report very soon, and we can see how much I'm actually retaining of the rules and how many mistakes I'm going to make. But I've enjoyed doing this. Let me know if you need more of it. I'm eyeing up Slain as well to do very soon. But until then, thank you for watching. Enjoy the series, and I'll catch you in the battle report soon. Bye bye.